Hi guys, welcome to Novel Thoughts. Today I'm going to be doing my September wrap-up. So October is already totally upon us. All of my decorations for the harvest are out and flourishing in my home. So I am going to be talking about all of the books I read in September, and even though this video is a little late, it will probably always be late because the next month just kind of sneaks up on you and all of a sudden it's no longer September and it's no longer July, and sooner or later it will no longer be October and life passes you by, but you still gotta do wrap-up videos. So this month I did something quite different from what I've been doing all the other months. I started reading potential curriculum for my grad school program. I have not applied yet. I'm actually working on applying to a women's studies and also religious studies program, and in order to be more prepared to apply, I decided to start reading some of the books they have on their syllabi, some of the books that they put out as a college, and some of the books that their professors have written. And so this month I got through 3 of those, and then I took a mental break and read some other literature once again. So the first one, I actually have my little Goodreads out because the author's names is just too hard to remember. So the first one I read was Women at Church, Magnifying LDS Women's Local Impact by Nylan McBain. So this one is really interesting because it's a very focused look at women in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Many people have already seen or heard about the Ordained Women movement, and whereas the Ordained Women movement was talking about some of the doctrines that the church holds, Nylan McBain is talking about the traditions and practices as outlined by what Latter-day Saints call Handbook 2, which is a guide for their leadership because their local, it's all lay members. What she was trying to do was explore ways that we could include women into the workings of the church more fully, as long as it didn't disagree with the instructions and the doctrines that have been given, and as long as it didn't harm anyone in the process. And so it's very accessible, especially for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it's very interesting. It's worth reading, it's worth thinking about, and I think it would be very effective for leaders in the LDS Church to read, and I loved it. So the next one I read was Women and Religion by Magella Franzman. Her essential topic was the hermeneutics of women and religion, and that's essentially the conversation, how we write, how we talk about, how we address women's place in religion. Her main point was, are women at the margins or in the center of religious experience? And if they are at the margins, what stories that are largely told from a male perspective can we re-examine from a female perspective so that we can place her in the center? And in that way have a better understanding of how women interact with religion. The next one was I Am Malala, the girl who stood up for education and was shot by the Taliban. And it was written by Malala. Now this one was awesome, and it was very interesting. She has a great grasp of the political, historical, and cultural unrest and history of her home, and she goes into quite a bit of it. I read it right around September 11th, which was unintentional. I had no idea what the book would be about, except other than this girl who was shot by the Taliban. And so it was very interesting to hear her explain the effect of 9/11 on her home, the effect of the Taliban on her home, and how she was raised from an entirely non-American perspective. It was quite enlightening, and she's very admirable, and I would recommend this autobiography to anybody because it was very educational and quite inspiring. The next book I actually read because I was really mentally overwhelmed with all of the texts that I was reading for Women and Religion. So I decided to read Wit by Margaret Edson, and this is a play. It's very, very good. It follows a short amount of time in Vivian Baring's life, She is a professor of metaphysical poetry. She specializes in John Donne's holy sonnets, which I love, so I had an automatic into why I would love this play. The story opens up with her thinking, well, she has cancer, and as she goes through this process of having cancer, she goes through a very, very rigorous treatment, and she will have consistent flashbacks to moments before, and then it's our job to understand how they affect her experience currently. So, at first, she is not a very approachable character. She is specifically tough, and she's strict, and she is unrelenting as a person, and we feel that in how we interact with her as a character to a reader. But as the text goes on, she slowly starts breaking down because of pain and fear, and it becomes a really interesting insight into humanity, and you start to really, really care about her, and by the end you are entirely invested and incredibly heartrended by the experiences that she is having. What's interesting about the John Donne part is specific in the title, it's W:*T, wit. Now, why the semicolon? One of her first flashbacks has to do with her in studying a holy sonnet in college, and she is trying to figure out the difference between the semicolon and the comma that separates life, death, and eternal life in John Donne's poetry, and the idea of it is that it's just a comma. Now, if you want to know a little bit about this, there actually is a film called Wit as well, and Emma Thompson stars as Vivian Barron, and they have this scene available on YouTube. I'll give you the link so that you can go see it, and it actually is this opening. It's her very first flashback in the play, and as we go throughout the rest of the play, we will start to see her act as though death is just a comma. And then we will see her slowly struggle with, do I want it to be a comma, just a pause, nothing big happened? Or do I want it to be the semicolon, the full stop to not only my life, but other people? I want people to care about this, and I am scared, full stop. But I still hope that something comes after, the same way that something will always come after a semicolon. And it is immensely brilliant to view her experience with cancer through the lens of metaphysical poetry and John Donne. The entire thing is written in wit, just like his poetry, and as also to be able to analyze it through the punctuation that they make prevalent in the play. And so I highly recommend it to anybody who wants to feel some catharsis over an experience with cancer, who likes John Donne poetry, who has studied English, or someone who has studied linguistics, or perhaps an editor, anybody who, or even just like a grammar, like punctuation fanatic, anybody who likes any of those elements will enjoy how they are put together so beautifully in this play. The next book I read was Dodger by Terry Pratchett. I've already told you a little bit about it, but I told you about it when I hadn't read it yet, so now I can finally confirmed that it really, really was very good. It's about Dodger, who is based off Charles Dickens' character, the Artful Dodger in Oliver Twist. And in this book, he's about a teenager, and it's so fun. He gets himself into all sorts of interesting circumstances. He runs into Sweeney Todd, he runs into Charles Dickens, he runs into quite a few other people, and just has a great time trying to navigate this world that is a little bit more posh than he is used to. It's Terry Pratchett, and so it's very witty and clever and just so fun. So I definitely recommend that book. My next book that I read was The Old Maid, the 50s by Edith Wharton. Now I actually have this one with me, so this is a very, very old copy, thanks to Confab with Abs, who lent it to me. It has a beautiful old little picture on the inside right here. I love old books for this reason. They're so great. This is essentially a short story. It looks a lot thicker than that, but every page has large text, and it's about a quarter-page format. So all in all, it really is more like 50 pages that it's just like a short story, maybe a novella length. It was incredible. The characterization in this story is fantastic. It's essentially the story of two women. They're cousins. One is Charlotte and one is Delia. And Delia is married and Charlotte is not. She was sick for about a year and she comes back. She's taking care of a bunch of young kids, and all of a sudden her life falls apart and we're not quite sure why, and she runs to Delia for help. The characterization is full of depth and just incredible, complex pairs. Gratitude but bitterness, compassion but jealousy. And they're just such interesting pairings. And these pairings follow these two women throughout the course of their lives. And together they find this really heart-wrenching, difficult balance. It's so short, guys. It took me an hour and a half to read on the train, and it's incredible. It's incredible. I highly, highly recommend The Old Maid by Edith Wharton. It's a great way to get into Edith Wharton. She's also wrote The Age of Innocence and The House of Mirth. Those are two titles people will probably recognize. I just really liked this book, and because it is like short story novella length, I think everybody has time to read it and would really benefit from it because of how it paints the female circumstance, condition, and unsolvable problems of this era. So that one was awesome. The last one I read was another play. I just kind of felt like plays this last week, and it is The Ideal Husband by Oscar Wilde. This one was quite funny. It follows the storyline of the Chilterns and some of their friends. Robert Chiltern gets blackmailed, and unfortunately this could not only end his career but his marriage, because his wife has placed him as the ideal husband on an ideal pedestal, and if he falls she cannot possibly be happy because their relationship is built off her worshiping him. And their friend is trying to help them separately work out this issue, and he's for being like honestly the fop of the novel, he's incredibly wise. The entire time he's just convincing them, just tell them the truth, but they won't, because they're so afraid of falling from their ideal that they have created of each other, this like Mr. and Mrs. Chiltern, that they won't tell each other the truth. And so then the truth comes out anyway and everything falls apart, and it's just like, well, you guys should have told each other. And so it's just fun. It's very witty, it's very clever, it's an incredible commentary on politics, it commentates on integrity, it commentates on morality and the idealization of those we care about. And so it's fast, it's Oscar Wilde, and it's very entertaining, and it is thought-provoking, all of which are reasons for you to read this book. So that's what I read in this month, last month, September. It was great, it was fun, and I got quite a smattering of genres. And with that, if you want to subscribe, the button will be right here, and I will see you guys next time to talk about more books on Novel Thoughts. Bye.